good, man. It's like 15 minutes north of Fresno right now. Just getting into town. First time back since July.
Uh, the Goddard train's rolling into town. Watch out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man. We got Mark Dotseth, who's at work right now. Now you can turn your camera on,
buddy.
Mark. Oh, there you go. Oh man.
Just hanging out in Green Zone.
Nice, right on.
Oh,
Who
you
are you
poor
working
bastard.
with?
Krogan.
Oh, right on. Nice. All right, let's see. So, all right, we've got Ernst en route to my house. Everybody's coming to my house. We got Joe, we got Evan, and we got Alfonso. Is this everybody? I think this is. Let's get started. All right, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through a little PowerPoint here. All right, can you guys see that?
I cannot, but it might be because I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay.
I can't see it either.
I can't. Oh, shit. And you guys, it's just the folks who are driving?
I can't see it.
Can't see it.
I can't see it either.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Hold on.
Miles, have you ever used Zoom before?
Dude, I'm too old for this shit, man. All right, here we go. All right, what about now?
Yeah.
All
Here we
right,
go.
here we go. Look at that, man. I fucking really went big. You see that? Moving letters? Everybody see that? All right. Okay. All right, man. So night before the training, we'll take no more than an hour. Let's see. I don't think folks have met each other on here. So do we want to just do a quick introduction? I'm Miles, I'm fourth year resident. Helped start this winter training last year. And pretty stoked to do it again. Have a lot of experience prior to medical school doing search and rescue. Have taken Area 1 and 2 multiple times and took a avalanche rescue course as well. So I've been doing this stuff for a while, a lot of touring. Who we got next? We got Ryan.
Hey, I'm Ryan. I'm one of the attendings at Fresno, and yeah, I went on the trip last year with folks. And prior to med school, I worked in EMS. I worked in the Tetons as a ranger, and done a lot of backcountry touring, kind of all over.
Yeah, Ryan's super humble. He also is our global health director, does a lot of stuff with the Park Medic program, climbs the skis hard, but don't ask him his age. He's at least 65, but don't even that. All right, Scotty.
Scotty doesn't know. Oh shit.
That's right. I'm Scotty. I finished up residency in Fresno last July. Went out to Fair Lake Hut last year with everybody. Great experience. Been doing a good amount of backcountry skiing the last 10 or so years. Yeah, looking forward to getting back out there.
And Scotty and I last year took the diploma in Mountain Medicine course up in Canada, which was like 2-week-long sessions of mountain medicine. And so our ultimate goal, along with Ernst, is to start something similar in the Sierras. That might be, this course kind of is like the foundation of something that we could grow a lot bigger, that we're also hoping is going to be intimately involved with the National Park Service. So we can talk more about that on the hut for people who are interested. All right, and we got some junior residents. We got Mark Dotseth, still at work, hardcore.
Still stuck at work for the night. Yeah, Mark, on the second years. I wasn't able to participate in the trip hut last year, but excited to be joining this year. And I don't think I really have as much experience as the rest of the guys, kind of a smattering of backcountry days over the last 10 years or so, but excited to join in on this trip.
Right on. Yep, and there's no prerequisites. Just got to be on skis or split board. No more snowshoers this year. All right, and we got Joe.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm Joe. I'm one of the interns. I think I've met Evan. Have not met Alfonso yet, though. Yeah, as far as experience goes, again, kind of limited compared to the rest of y'all. Sporadic backcountry days over the past 3 years while I was living in the Midwest, and have done my Area 1 course.
Sweet. All right, we got Evan. Evan's a returning. Evan didn't have enough fun last year, so he's coming back.
Couldn't figure out how to unmute it. Hi, everybody. I'm Evan, park ranger, and I'm in Grant Grove, so in the Kings District. And yeah, I've been ski patrolling. I started ski patrolling in 2017, and then my last ski patrol season was before I got permanent up here in Park City. And so I got my Area 1 at Park City, and that's when I started touring as well. And so done a great amount of touring locally here in Grant Grove. And then, yeah, I was on the trip last year. Really good time. Really look forward to boosting our avalanche and winter rescue program here. So that's my main goal.
Right on. And then Alfonso, I don't think I've met you yet, Alfonso.
Nope, brand new to the Park Service. I know this is working or not.
Yeah, we got you.
All right, so brand new to the Park Service. I got about less than a year. I lived in Alaska for multiple years, so I have a lot of cold weather training out in the Army. So that's all we did out there. And not an EMT or medical stuff yet. I'm going to get my EMT in May, so I'm just going up there just to learn a bunch of medical stuff so I could be ready.
Right on. Welcome. Yeah, Alfonso, I think you flipped the camera on your phone, but that's all right.
Nice.
There you go. You're back. We're gonna do medical stuff for sure. And then also, of course, add in avalanche and SAR stuff. So hopefully it'll be all applicable for you guys. We took all the feedback from last year and incorporated it. So hopefully we're taking the stuff that worked last year, tweaking the stuff that didn't, and adding in new content that was requested. So sweet, pretty stoked. We got a trimmed down crew, but to be honest, like anywhere between 8 and 10 folks is probably the ideal. And we're gonna have one of the hut taker. Is it Colton is his last name? What's his name? Who's gonna be up there? I haven't met him before, but he might join us for some of the training.
Yeah, it's Javier Colton.
Javier.
And a little bit of his background is he's a hydrologist, I think with the Forest Service in his summers. And then in the winters, he has been ski patrolling pretty regularly at Mount Bachelor. And I got to talk to him on the phone today. And I think as far as like, that hydrology background, plus like a love of backcountry touring, I think he's a stud. I think we lucked out. I think all the hut keepers would have been good, but I'm really happy we have him.
Awesome. Yeah, that's sweet. That's great. Yeah. And like Evan and I talked about, we're planning just to incorporate him, whatever he wants to be involved in, we'll include him. And I think he's actually heading out on Thursday though, so he won't be there for the whole time. Is that right, Evan? Or is he gonna stay all the way to Saturday?
Yeah, he's gonna get out on Thursday. I think he'd be willing to participate in anything we do Thursday, but I think he's got a ski trip in Mammoth, so I think he's not gonna miss out on that. But it sounds like after he leaves, basically the hut's ours. I think he's gonna give us kind of like a checkout procedure, things like that, because there's gonna be some people that are paying to stay coming in Saturday after our Saturday group leaves.
Okay, sweet. Sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. So we'll just talk probably about the next 45 minutes. Let's see. So the first thing, we could just maybe get on the same page for logistics and gear. And so last year, we got a late start out of the trailhead, which meant that, due to the warm temperatures, it was slower travel, just with skins not sticking as well. And, we were in the sun, and it was just meant for a lot longer of a day because we didn't get an early start, and it limited what we could actually do from the training side on that first day. So the goal is to get an early start. Like, the hope is that everybody is like at the trailhead plus or minus like ready to go by 7. I know that's early, maybe less of an issue for Alfonso and Evan, but for us in Fresno, that means like in the car heading down the road no later than 5. And then Evan and Alfonso, like the best route for us is probably coming through Grant Grove, right? Because the north side is open. I know that was closed last year.
Yeah, that'll be good. And as of today, we went to no restrictions. So I mean, you don't even have to. I'd bring chains. You don't know what you're going to be running into whenever we leave. But I think all our vehicles will be good to go.
Okay, sweet. All right, and then carpooling wise, I know Scotty, Ernst, and I are all going to carpool together. Joe and Dutseth, are you guys gonna team up or what's your plan?
Yeah, we're planning on heading up together.
Okay, sweet. And you guys are planning to be there by 7?
That's the plan, yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right, and the only other update is that it might be a little bit cold at the hut just in terms of when they're keeping that stove on, but like Evan mentioned in the text, it was like alternating between super hot and a little bit chilly, kind of back and forth. So just make sure that you have, you know, appropriate sleeping bag to stay in the hut. You won't need a sleeping pad or a bivy or a tent, but we can talk about that in the group gear, but definitely have a good sleeping bag. All right, in terms of group gear, Evan, I know last year we had some MPS radios that we brought along. Are you guys planning to bring those along this time too?
Yeah, I've got my radio. Alfonso can bring his. And so yeah, we'll have the MPS radios. Nick brought the Rocky Talkies last year. And
Okay.
so we won't have those this year, at least
Okay.
on our end.
Okay, right on. I think Ryan, do you have Rocky Talkies this year?
Yeah, I have one.
You've won.
And
Okay.
I have 2.
I have 2.
You do. Okay. All right, sweet. So, I mean, if we have 2 Forest Service radios, I think that's great. Or MPS radios, because that, of course, if there's like a real emergency that goes down for either our group or a group we come across, my understanding is that, you know, we can, you know, both Alfonso and Evan can switch over into, you know, work mode, and they, you know, they know all of the, you know, how the organization works, incident command, all that stuff, and they can just take over and kind of head up like whatever response or incident we become involved in. Does that sound right, Evan and Alfonso? You guys can handle it from that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll be good to go with that.
Okay. And, you know, I think for the most part, we're going to be touring together as one group, but having 2 radios is always great. Do you know if the hut keeper also has a radio? I'm sure he does, huh?
Yeah, Hutkeeper's got a portable, and then there's a base station now in the hut as well.
Perfect. So I think we should bring at least 2 Rocky Talkies just so that maybe we can use them for scenarios or just have like a backup communication plan. So I guess Ernst and Scotty, whoever said yes, just plan on bringing those as group gear, just as our communication side. What about personal locator beacon or spot or inReach, anything like that? I'm going to bring my Garmin inReach.
Yeah, I've got one too.
Okay. I think
And yeah,
a couple are fine. And the Park Service, you guys have them, right? You guys will have to carry them as well?
you know, we've got them, and I didn't really think about grabbing one. I don't know where they keep them cached. I think they keep them cached in like our GIS office, but Javier has one
Okay.
that they track him on. And so I think we'll be good with that.
Perfect. Yeah. So you guys will be tracked by the Park Service. You know, Joe, myself, Scotty will have our personal ones, which I think will be plenty. So we'll have both the, you know, the radios and the inReach or whatever to be able to communicate. I think that's great. First aid kit. So, you know, back in the first meeting or stuff I sent out, you know, I emphasized, you know, each of us is kind of take care of our personal stuff. So personal meds, blisters, aches and pains, ibuprofen, Tylenol, that sort of stuff, you know, we'll manage our own. But in terms of like a big group first aid kit, Scotty was going to take that responsibility on. And the goal of the kit would just be to, you know, as kind of a first responder amongst our group, should something go down. Scotty, you want to just briefly talk about what you threw in there?
Yeah, I just have I mean, it's pretty, you know, pretty standard for a little bit more robust. It's got, you know, a SAM splint, a few ACEs, some gauze, you know, a bunch of different medications, pain medication, some Diamox, some prednisone, and Benadryl. Got a EpiPen if we need it. Let's see here. That's the majority of some, you know, stuff to suture for lacerations, lidocaine, etc.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks for bringing that. And so again, the goal is like, that's, you know, to, you know, manage our own injuries. You know, if we can fix something up and keep going, great. If not, there's a bigger incident, then that'll be our stash to kind of hopefully temporize what we can while, you know, Evan and Alfonso are calling in the cavalry, but, you know, knock on wood, that won't be an issue. Tent and bivy. So initially I mentioned that maybe we'd bring, you know, a tent. The whole thing is, you know, what happens if you get benighted, you know, in between, you know, the 5 miles in between the trailhead and the hut? You know, do we want to have something so that, you know, say somebody breaks a leg halfway in between, they're gonna have to spend the night waiting for a rescue. You know, how comfortable do we want to make them? And I don't think we necessarily need to bring a tent or a bivy. I'm going to be bringing my rescue sled, kind of like I did last year, which doubles as a bothy. And I think, you know, with sleeping bags and pads that we have and, you know, a snow shelter and a bothy, I think we could very well easily improvise, you know, a long night out for somebody who was immobile, and injured. So that would be my recommendation, is not really bringing the extra weight of a tent and bivy, because I think we can make do with what we have. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Rescue sled, we're gonna bring a dry erase board for some educational content. We've got some extra beacons for some of the scenarios we're gonna run. Some more Burley Tupperware. Last year we destroyed the cheap Tupperware I brought, so we leveled up this year. I have a gear repair kit, so essentially, you know, pretty much any disaster you can imagine for like a backcountry ski or split board. I think we'd be able to, you know, Frankenstein together to get out. I don't know. Does anybody else have any gear repair stuff that they're bringing?
I
I
kind
have
of
a
put
kit as
together,
well, but
you know, yeah, go ahead.
we probably just need one for the group,
Yeah.
unless
Okay.
unless you think otherwise.
Yeah, I just put together something small, like from what I saw of yours last year. Just threw together some extra skin clips, like a torque wrench, and some zip ties. Kind of just junk some stuff together. I've already had a skin break on me this winter, so I got to bring mine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so maybe Evan, you can bring your stuff. Scotty and I'll team up tonight. We'll see, just so we don't have a bunch of redundant stuff, and then we can save a little bit of weight. But the idea will be either Scotty or I will have like a gear repair kit that we can share amongst the group if something goes down. Food. So Scotty picked up dinner. Is that right, Scotty, for tomorrow night and Thursday night, and then we're coming out Friday?
Yeah, we're all set for dinner for everybody.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty big thing of coffee. You know, it's like 1 pound bag. Probably will suffice for everybody for 2 mornings, unless you guys think otherwise.
I think that'd be great. I checked with Evan and they do have some sort of French press up there. So if people are down, we could grind up that coffee to work with the French press at my house tonight and then just bring it along. Does that sound good, guys?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. And then for food, and we can talk about this too. I mean, the initial plan was that, you know, Evan, Alfonso, myself, and Ryan Ernst would stay an additional night. I don't want to totally blow up that plan, but we'll talk a little bit about the forecast, and we can decide together. But starting, you know, Friday afternoon, heading through Saturday night and into Saturday morning, there is a lot of snow coming in. So it looks like another 1.5 feet of snow over the course of like 16 hours with that new system that's coming in. And I just, you know, being out there with that much snow, 5 miles from the trailhead, you know, without, you know, I think you're gonna be touring in a cloud and then trying to get out with a whole bunch of snow, which will definitely change, you know, the risk that's associated with that. So we can talk about it more, but my recommendation would be that we just all come out together on Friday evening or afternoon on the 29th, and just avoid that hazard altogether, would be my thought.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. Sounds good on our end.
Okay.
You got anything, Torres?
Sounds good with me.
Okay. Yeah, we were hoping that we would do one additional night compared to last year. But I think it's just going to be a little bit much this year. And the last thing I have for the group gear are pellets. Evan, you want to fill the group in on kind of what the agreement is with us getting this place for free and them needing pellets?
Yeah, it sounds like they've had some issues with the stove. And so the SPC rep had dropped some pellets off at Alfonso's office, and so I sent a picture of that into that group chat that we're in. And so it looks like it's about 40 pounds divvied up into 8 5-pound sacks. Is that right, Alfonso? Is that kind of what that's what I thought it was.
That's about
They
right.
look like grocery bags, you know, but probably nice California grocery bags. What do you know, Alfonso?
I didn't do the counting, but yeah, sounds about right. Not too much heavyweight or anything like that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I've been trying to leave room in my bag just to kind of put those in there, and if not, I'm gonna probably put them in like a stuff sack and just hang it from my bag. But that seems to be about where we're at.
Nice. Okay, so I think 4 for Mark and then 4 for Joe, and we'll call it good.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, sweet.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Okay, so maybe a little bit extra weight, and like we talked about in the chat, you know, the goal is like 40 to 45 pound packs. Last year we had somebody who had like a 70-pound pack, so trying to, you know, minimize the overall weight, but you know, we'll have a little scale at the trailhead. So if anybody's like, you know, 10 pounds heavier than the others, we can reshuffle gear, but that's kind of the goal, you know, bring enough gear, but not too much so that we could still move efficiently. All right, anything else for the group gear, the logistics? Yeah. All right. So personal gear list. I just want to go through this one more time. You know, I sent this out before, but you know, it's going to be a bummer if we show up at the trailhead tomorrow morning and somebody doesn't have, you know, an essential supply. Yeah. So we all got the packs, clothing, kind of goes without saying, stuff for the hut and for touring. It's really nice at that hut to have an extra pair of slippers or shoes. There is a bathroom inside for number 2, but they want you, I think my understanding is still to be going outside for number 1. You know, gloves, of course, helmets optional. I would recommend both sunglasses and goggles, especially with, you know, some snow kind of intermittently coming in and, you know, clouds rolling through and it being a bit windy. Sunscreen, talked about a personal first aid kit. You know, some people enjoyed having like a pencil and a waterproof notebook last year. I have a couple extra if people want them. Again, that's optional. Some sort of hydration system, your own toiletries, headlamp. And in terms of like electronics, I don't think there's going to be a place where we can charge stuff at the hut. You know, if there is, great, but otherwise just plan on charging, you know, having stuff to charge your electronics if needed. If people are still using map and compass, that's great. Otherwise, everybody should have an app on their phone with downloaded maps and a route. The idea is that we're all going to be self-sustaining. Should anybody get lost or separated, you know, everybody should have the ability to navigate effectively, you know, at least on the tour in. Mode of travel. So don't forget your, you know, skins or boots, poles, and, you know, your split border skis. You know, I have like a couple different skins. I always make sure I grab the right ones because that would be a huge bummer for sure. The other thing I would say too, you know, we're not really doing any ski mountaineering and the conditions are such where I don't think we should be bringing ski crampons. We didn't last year. And it's the sort of thing where we kind of all have to be on the same page. We either all bring them or we all leave them. So my plan was not bring, you know, ice axe, ski crampons, boot crampons, anything like that, as we're just going to be touring. Beacon shovel probe, of course, sleeping bag like we talked about, warm enough for the hut. Earplugs if you want them. Scotty snores really loud, so people might want to bring those. And then personal food, so we're all taking care of our own breakfast and lunch and snacks, and then Scotty's got dinner. Anybody have last minute issues with the gear stuff? I know a lot of us have, you know, duplicates of some of this stuff. We can easily throw it in the car if people are missing stuff. Sweet. If you're going through stuff tonight and you find you're missing something, just send us a text and we'll get it taken care of. All right. So the last part of the meeting, I just want to talk about the forecast and avalanche hazard, and we can, you know, have a discussion about, you know, these hazards, how we're going to mitigate the risk, and talk a little bit about the route. So the forecast, this is from NOAA point forecast for the trailhead. And you know, the big takeaway for me, this is starting tomorrow morning. It's going to be the first warming since that system came in over the weekend. So it's going to get pretty warm, right? So at the trailhead, it's going to get to be, you know, mid 40s by the mid afternoon. And so I think I just threw this in here to drive this home. You know, there is a warming trend. And that's part of the reason why we really want to just get on the trail, right away and, make good time up to the Col and just get to an area where it's a little bit more reasonable. It's still going to be a little bit warmer up there, but it's going to be a whole 10 or 12 degrees cooler, which I think is going to allow us, for easier movement at that elevation and less hazard, right? So, if we're by, at the Col when it's still, freezing, I think that would be great. If we can cruise up there by 10, 10:30, 11 at the latest, that would be great. And then, we can mitigate the risk from there on in. This will definitely be the warmest day. It'll be below freezing for the rest of the time that we're up there, but there is a warming trend. The other thing for the forecast is the direction of the wind changes from coming from the north to more of like from the southwest. This is important just because how much snow came in and, it's still getting moved around, forming hazards, right? So we'll talk about it a little bit more with the avalanche forecast, but, wind is still being transported and it's not in a consistent direction, unfortunately, up high. So here's a detailed forecast. So again, a lot of wind, 10 to 15 to 20, 25 mile per hour, during the times that we're up there. Like I mentioned, the warmest day is going to be tomorrow, and then it'll be a little bit more overcast and cooler for the remaining 2 days. And then on Thursday, we get a little bit of snow, I guess Wednesday night into Thursday. But for Wednesday and Thursday, it's only going to be a couple inches. And then it's Friday night when stuff really starts coming in. And overnight alone, it's going to be 10 inches, and then it's just going to continue on through Saturday. So, my understanding per what Evan said is we might have some cell reception up there. So my plan, if that's the case, would be to, pull the forecast from the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center every morning at 7 o'clock, 7:30, to get updates on the weather and avalanche forecast. Do you have any more details on that, Evan?
Just that I think it's pretty good. He said maybe 500 feet away from the hut in a certain direction. And yeah, Javier will be able to point out a lot of good local knowledge and stuff like that. But we got a new tower, I think, sometime in the summer. And so pretty good AT&T and Verizon. Is that correct, Torres? Is AT&T pretty good in the Lodgepole area now?
AT&T does not work in Lodgepole, but Verizon works really good.
Okay, so there we are, Verizon.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well, I have Verizon, so F you guys. Perfect. So at least one of us will be able to get updated forecasts and whatnot. So I think that'll be great because, the real question is, does that system come in earlier? And then we'll have to maybe change plans. But it'll also be great to get an updated forecast from the east side every day. I don't expect the forecast to get worse while we're up there, but it'll be nice to get some additional data points. All right, so avalanche forecast today. We have 2 local avalanche centers, right? This one right here, I don't know if you'd see it, but that's Lake Tahoe right in the middle of this forecasting zone. This is the Sierra Avalanche Center, and then we've got the Eastern Sierra Avalanche Center. And of course, we're way down here, right? So, neither of these actually really apply to us, but we can extrapolate some of this data to what we're dealing with. They reported it as being a moderate hazard. It was high and then considerable and down to moderate over the past couple of days as the storm system trailed out. And then this is from the Sierra and then the Eastern Sierra on the top and bottom here respectively. And this is what they're saying for the hazard. So, the sunshine and warmer temperatures can lead to wet snow problems as a day progresses. And then they also talk about wind-blown slabs from the wind event that happened at the end of the storm system. And it's identical for this concern. So both up in Tahoe and then on the east side, it's a combination of both warming and loose wet, but then also wind slabs. But despite those 2 problems, it's rated as moderate. So here's the avalanche danger. They partition it out for folks who are not used to reading these: below, at tree line, and above tree line. We're of course going to be, moving through all of these into the Alpine. And then as time goes on, like I mentioned, the hazard does not get worse, it tends to moderate. What does moderate mean, right? So hey, what's up, Scotty? Heightened avalanche conditions on specific terrain features. Natural avalanches are unlikely, but human triggered avalanches are still possible, right? And that's different, from the considerable high and extreme, where natural avalanches become a possibility to a certainty as you get higher in risk. So we're dealing with a moderate concern. I want to throw this slide in for a considerable risk, because this is where a lot of the accidents happen. Obviously, in terms of fatalities or incidents, right, during a low hazard day, they're low. And it turns out extreme danger ratings, very high on the scale, they're also, there's less fatalities. And that's just because most people don't go out in these events. They either go out and they don't get any issues, or they just stay at home and they don't get caught in avalanche incidents and killed. It's the considerable range where we have a low confidence in the forecast, where we start having the increase in the fatalities, just because of the uncertainty involved in the forecast. So I just want to throw that in there. The considerable rating is always kind of, the one that we end up, thinking a lot harder about when we go out into terrain. Fortunately, we're going to be in this moderate zone, based on those other two forecasts. But again, that forecast is for different areas and not necessarily our own. So the two problems we're dealing with, the first one is going to be wind slab. These were reported by the two avalanche centers. So, for folks who are still new to the avalanche, education side of things, these happen when you get a bunch of new snow that comes in and then a wind event, and it has to be wind, at least 10 miles and not more than 25 miles per hour, because it beats up all the snow crystals, allowing them to form like a really compact slab. And that's what this image is showing. Wind slab formation. You have a very dense, cohesive unit that forms on, the leeward side of the slope. In terms of what aspect or elevation, the darkened area is showing where the hazard exists. And so it's at all aspects, and that's just in relation to where the wind's been coming from. Like we saw in the forecast, it's, going from north to southwest tomorrow alone, and it happened a lot during the storm. So we could be finding these hazards on any aspect, and it's mostly up at elevation. Because it's a moderate hazard, it's a possible. And in terms of size, it's small to a D2. And in terms of like that hazard, small just means that it's relatively harmless to people. A large scale is going to be something that could bury, injure, or kill a person. Very large will be something that could destroy a car, take down a wood frame house, knock out a few trees. And then the D4, D5, these are the things that, it takes out a rail car, knocks down old growth, trees, gouges a landscape, that sort of stuff. So it's a relatively small predicted avalanche for this hazard. This is a great picture of what this might look like. So you can guess the wind's coming from this way, scouring all this snow that landed here, and then pushing it over here, forming like a very cohesive slab, right? That then, as somebody's skiing through here in a shallow area, can trigger the whole slab and cause it to go, right? So these typically go from, the boot top from your skis and release from there down. Rarely do they propagate up and cause an issue above you. But as you can tell, right, they can be quite deep. And with all the snow that came in and the ongoing transport, you can have, slabs that are, feet deep at this point. So that'll be a hazard that, we're looking out for. The other thing I'll say about wind slab, and this is like old hat to a lot of people on here, but as you're moving through the terrain, you can definitely feel these, right? So you can feel like you go from like soft snow with boot penetration to a very hard, firm, kind of hollow, sort of terrain, and that could signal that you're on a wind slab. And so those will be observations that we keep an eye out for as we're traveling through terrain. Other thing I'll say too is, where does this stuff happen? So think about below ridge lines, catchment zones, gullies, chutes, bowls, things like that, where this snow can pile up. Any questions about that first hazard, the wind slab hazard? Okay, the second main hazard is gonna be wet, loose snow. So this is new snow that's come in that has a warming event and then also has like radiant energy from the sun that can cause an instability within that upper layer of snow that hasn't consolidated yet. Just to cut ahead, this is what it looks like, right? So it usually has triggers at these areas where you get a lot of radiant heat that's being absorbed. So any sort of rocks or cliff bands can be a trigger. They almost always fan out like this, and they entrain snow as they slowly move down the slope. They can be slow, but once you get caught in these things, they're hard to get out of. And so there can still be quite a significant hazard. Unlike the wind slab, right? These can trigger way above us, right? So we're touring through here, right? It can start way above us and have a fan that entrains a lot of terrain that we're traveling through. In terms of the aspect, this is something that's not going to happen on the north faces, right? Because they're just not getting radiant heat and they're not really getting much sun exposure. We'll take a look as we're going through our route, but we'll keep that in mind. You know, southwest through southeasterly directions are going to be the main concern for this hazard. And notice it's at pretty much all elevations, probably up until the point where you know, it gets to be below freezing despite the warming event. Again, possible as the moderate risk and then relatively small in size. So those are the only two hazards that are forecasted. You know, we don't have a deep persistent problem. You know, we don't have any surface hoar that's formed, which is great. You know, we don't have the problems of the intercontinental snowpack. And the snow from earlier in the season seems to have bonded pretty well below. You know, we'll dig in the snow a little bit while we're out there and just kind of test that hypothesis, but there's not a lot of layers in the snowpack that a loose wet or a wind slab could step down on. So that's good. And that's part of the reason why the forecast is moderate, despite there being 19 inches of new snow. So I guess that's the good part about the trip. There's a lot of new snow out there. This comes from, you know, beta from, you know, our hut taker. But that's also the issue, right? Is there's a lot of new snow that's out there. So the good news about this is, you know, we're in the maritime climate. And so it's been a full 48 hours since this dump of snow has happened. And usually in our zone, the avalanche hazard spikes and then comes down pretty quickly. And all the activity we see within that first 48 hours for the most part, as long as it's not like a deep persistent issue. So that's great, right? The snow system ended Sunday evening and we're going out Wednesday morning. So that's working to our advantage and a big part why the overall hazard is moderate. Per what I heard from Evan and our hut keeper, there were no obvious avalanches that were reported, which is great. You know, as we're touring in, we can keep an eye out ourselves. But, you know, seeing actual avalanches in the terrain is, of course, a red flag, and we'll keep an eye out. There has been evidence of wind transport out there. He said some stuff was getting moved from the south side to the north side during his tour the past day or two. Heard some wumping, which is a collapsing of a weak layer in association with those shallow wind slabs. And then he did dig some snow pits, but I wasn't really clear what exactly he found. But we can talk a little bit about snow tests, and we can do our own, and we can talk with him more, you know, once we see him at the hut. But I think overall, you know, we have some beta in the area. We know how much snow is out there. We have some forecasts, you know, from two different organizations, not our area, but pretty close, that show a downtrending hazard rating. And we don't have any suspicion for any unique layers that are in our area. So I think overall, I think we can, you know, trust kind of this forecast overall. So we can just pause right there. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or concerns about either the weather or the avalanche forecast? Okay, sweet. So let's just talk about the route. So with that in mind, this is our route. I think everybody, you know, has this information by now. We'll start the Lakes trailhead, hop on that summer trail, and essentially cruise in to the first turnoff where you can head out to the watchtower. You can keep going up the summer trail. and we want to stay out of this area. Evan's going to lead a discussion on a case tomorrow night where there's an avalanche fatality that happened right here. After a group of 2 were trying to ski in a whiteout with like a couple feet of snow, they got caught in an avalanche here, and there's a fatality in this location. So, we're going to try to stay out of this, steep terrain, of course. This is a slope angle shaded map. So all these, anything that's super dark, we're going from yellow to red to purple. That's just an increase in steepness, right? So you can notice our track is trying to stay out of avalanche terrain as we head up to the col. So this is the col or the hump. This waypoint right here would be our first break, power through first half of the elevation to about, 8,300 feet. Take a break here, maybe do just a brief, 10-minute didactic, and then continue on up to the col. How do people feel about that first half of the trip? Given what our weather and forecast and start time is, and, team composition, weight of packs, does everybody feel that that's reasonable, or are there some concerns or other alternatives?
I think that sounds like a good option.
Cool. And this is what we did last year. Evan was out there. We got a thumbs up from Evan. This worked pretty well. We debriefed it, and I think, for an up track and a down track, this seemed pretty bomber overall. That's not to say there is not avalanche hazard in here, right? It's definitely, some complicated terrain in here. There are tree wells, there are creeks, there are gullies, there are rollovers with convexities. So, it's not without hazard. It's just that on average, the slopes through here are not above 30 degrees, right? And it's a 30-degree slope and above that we become concerned for avalanches occurring, but you can definitely get into trouble in here if you're not paying attention. All right, and then heading up to the col, and then hopefully we can, crush through this and get up here by 11 o'clock at the latest would be our hope, before things really start to warm up. And I think that'd be pretty reasonable, if we're get to the trailhead, do a gear check, do a beacon check, sort some group gear, and just head out. And then we take a break at this point. All right, so that's just a close up of the route in. And then this is once we're at the hump or the col, right? So this is about 9,100 feet, I think. And Pear Lake Hut is like 9,300 feet. So we essentially gain all of our elevation, drop like 700 feet, and then gain it back to get over here. So we've got a couple options that we should probably talk about and make a decision as a group. So I tried to draw these 3 lines: turquoise, the blue route, the purple. We took the blue last year. And it sounds like beta from our hut keeper is that most people are doing this blue route. We talked initially maybe doing the purple route down. The advantage here, and this might be a better image. This is like this image turned 180, and then with the contours played out in 3D, right? So here, way over here is from the right side of the screen is a car, and we come up to the col or the hump, and then these are the 3 options. So you can either keep going up and then transition here and ski all the way down to the basin. We can do what we did last year. We have to drop a couple hundred feet, transition back to skinning, come back over this hump, transition here, and then ski down. This area right here through this blue is called I think the soccer field. Is that right, Evan? Well, we decided this is probably that feature that's been skiing pretty well.
Yeah, I confirmed it with Javier. I'm not seeing your cursor real well, but looking at this image here, let's just try to see here. You look at that real low angle part. I guess from right to left we have Heather Lake, and then Astor Lake's that bottom one, and Emerald would be that top one on the left.
Mm-hmm.
So to the right of that spine, that ridge, they call that the soccer field. So from that summit there and all that low angled terrain,
all this
kind of surrounded by all that steepness, that's the soccer field, and people ride that the whole way down into the basin where like magenta skin track's going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said there's a ton of he just didn't say that was a common way to go, the pink way, but he said a lot of people like to ski, and like we're definitely going to run into ski tracks down there, which I mean would be a good sign and kind of a good guide to the hut. So I mean that's definitely a good way. I'd be interested in doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So I agree. You know, initially we were like, oh, well, maybe we could just hit this magenta line, drop all the creek, you know, and tour up the Marble Fork here. The problem is, I think, you know, we'd have to cross across the Marble Fork twice. And who knows, you know, I mean, Scotty said that, you know, up at the Tahoe area, there's already some creeks that are starting to melt out. You know, this would be at like, you know, I don't know, like 8,500 feet, and crossing a big river like that with snow bridges just seems like a hazard that we, you know, would be best to just avoid and not, you know, drop that unnecessary elevation. So I agree. I think that this magenta, you know, there's a reason why most people don't do that, and we could probably mark that off the list. You know, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to trying the turquoise route. You know, we might be able to get some more information once we're at the hump, get some eyes on things and talk about it a little bit more. The only issue to keep in mind, you know, it'd be all north facing, which is great, right? So we wouldn't be getting the solar aspect. The loose wet would not be a hazard here. The one hazard would be, you know, all of the wind slabs, you know, coming over these ridges, you know, getting blown, and we just won't know where they are until we're moving through that terrain. You know, we can take a look and you can see some wind scoured features, but you know, they're just going to be pockets in there based on these micro features, you know, where there could be some wind slabs. And if something does cut here, right, as we're coming through this, you know, this would be a hazard that we need to think about, right? As traversing above, you know, above some cliff bands. You know, this is a couple hundred feet, you know, into that lake there. So that'd be something to think about. I'm not ruling it off I'm not voting against it, but you know, just being honest about what the hazards are. The blue kind of avoids all the hazard through there, right? Stays well away from, you know, this huge slope here into that lake. It's just that you have to, you know, ski and transition and skin back out of it. But I think that drop, you know, from where the blue and the turquoise meet up, I think that's a pretty, it's like our best approach to get down into the Marble Fork. The other thing I'd mention is this Astor Creek, you know, halfway down this blue line to get to the turquoise, you know, that was open last year in late February, despite, you know, the massive snow year. We'll of course be going a whole month later, so maybe, you know, the same amount of snow, maybe a little bit less. But there's a reality that this creek might be open, so it'll be heads up around here just to make sure we're not, you know, unwittingly heading into any hazards. Did Evan, did he mention that there were any creeks that were open? I forgot to ask about that.
None that he had seen, specifically the Astor Creek. He said it was okay. Didn't have really any concern with that when we talked to him today.
Nice. Okay. You know, and so I don't know, how do people feel about, you know, either the blue or the turquoise route? Any thoughts from other people?
We can also make it kind of a game time decision once we get up there and have a little bit more of a visual on what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. You know, by that point, we'll see how we're moving, see what time of day it is, get some more actual observations in the field. We'll be able to see the terrain. You know, if everything's great, it's 10:30, we're cruising, everybody's feeling great, the terrain looks fine, there's no wind slabs or wind effect up here. You know, we could potentially, you know, tour up here, ski the soccer field, you know, all the way down to the drainage. You know, if it's already 1 o'clock and we're really slow and, you know, it's warming up, then, you know, maybe we just stick to last year's plan and, you know, cruise on through on the blue line. So I think that's reasonable. We'll just kind of regroup again and have some more information, and we'll make a decision as a group. All right. Last thing I'll say before we can break. So, you know, for people taking courses, different companies out there, I've taken all mine through ARI. They've got a great, you know, they've got their blue book, right, that has, you know, places to, you know, write your observations down. They have a whole framework for mitigating risk, you know, and so we'll just briefly talk about this. You know, so we've done our preparation, right? We've planned our trip, you know, anticipated the hazard. We talked a little bit about our emergency plan, which is pretty unique for us, right? We're not just a recreational tour necessarily, right? We're going in for a multi-day trip with training in mind, but we have our emergency plan dialed. And then so tomorrow, right, we'll be entering directly into the ride safely. You know, I don't think there's gonna be any new observations tomorrow, so we can do our beacon check, talk a little bit about, you know, any updates and just kind of head out. But, you know, we'll want to monitor the conditions along the route. People need to speak up. Everybody's got a veto power. So if you don't like what you're seeing or you're uncomfortable about something, you know, definitely, you know, let people know so we can talk and mitigate the risk, or just, you know, pull the plug if it's something that we can't deal with, right? You know, we're making hypotheses, right? And we're testing them. So our hypothesis is that there's a moderate hazard and that wind slabs and loose wet are hazards. If we're seeing, you know, deep slab problems, or, you know, we're seeing these other hazards that we didn't anticipate, right? We're going to have to stop and reassess, because, you know, everything that we've kind of built our risk on will have changed, right? So if we're making observations and we're seeing small wind slabs and we're able to avoid them, or on a, you know, on a south facing slope, we see, you know, a fan shaped loose wet go, right? All of that kind of fits within our, you know, mental framework and reaffirms our hypotheses and won't necessarily change what we do. But if we see things we don't expect, we got to take a step back and totally reconsider what's going on. And then, of course, at the end of the day, you know, doing a debrief so we can, you know, do better the next day, identify issues. We'll use this plan. So, you know, I'll fill it out as we go. It's a nice tool. This talks a little bit about, you know, the mindset overall in regards to the plan. You know, for us, like, you know, we're going to be limiting our exposure, right, based on like our hazard. You know, it's not a, you know, a low risk day where we feel comfortable like going and hitting those, you know, northwest, you know, face down into, you know, one of those lakes, right? It's not that kind of day, but, you know, we do feel we can mitigate the terrain and move through to get our objective done. All right, that's all I have. I'll go ahead and stop the slide share. Any other thoughts from the group in terms of, you know, the forecast or gear or the route plan, anything?
I think it looks very thorough. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Right on. Okay. All right. So I guess if there's no
Yeah,
other issues. Yeah, what's up?
I was just gonna say, good job. Well thought out. Covered a lot of the bases, so it's good. Great job.
Right on. Okay, sweet. So then we'll just plan to, you know, meet at the trailhead tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., you know, essentially ready to go, hopefully. And we can do some sorting and then just transition out of there and get moving into the field.
Don't forget your skins.
Don't forget your skins or your boots. We're gonna
Thanks,
make
guys. See you guys in the
we're gonna
morning.
make you come anyway if you forget them.
Sounds
I
good.
gotta
y'all.
get back out to East Hallway.
Right on. All right, we'll see you guys.
Yeah.
See everybody tomorrow.